Browns are reportedly considering replacing Shedeur Sanders with Arch Manning, as in benching, demoting, or even sending Shedeur to the practice squad to make room for a guy who hasn't even entered the draft yet. That sound you just heard? That was a collective scream of every Browns fan, football analyst, and Shedeur supporter echoing across the internet. Because if this is true, we're not just witnessing a quarterback controversy. We're witnessing a full-blown franchise identity crisis. Let's take a second to just digest the absurdity of this.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Shedeur Sanders. Yes, that Shedeur has been one of the most compelling young quarterbacks in the league. He's got accuracy. He's got pocket presence. He's got leadership, toughness, and a backstory that matters. This is a guy who walked into the NFL without the red carpet treatment, drafted in the 5th round despite a college resume that would have made any other QB a day 1 pick if they weren't so loud about their confidence. Shedeur didn't ask for handouts. He worked. He absorbed. He took hits. He showed up. And now he's being dangled like trade bait while the front office fawns over a legacy name who hasn't proven anything beyond genetics. It's not just disrespectful. It's delusional. Look, we get it. Arch Manning's last name carries weight. It's the kind of name that sends PR departments into a frenzy and sells jerseys before a snap is even played. He's got Uncle Peyton. He's got Uncle Eli. He's got every QB coach in the South treating him like a quarterbacking messiah. But let's stop pretending like the name automatically makes him better. Because in that Ohio State versus Texas game, Arch didn't look like a generational prospect. He looked fine. He missed reads. He threw short on open routes. He didn't command the field like a guy whose entire college career has been treated like a highlight reel in waiting. And while that's okay, he's still young. It's not okay if you're the Cleveland Browns thinking of betting your entire quarterback future on that kind of performance. Meanwhile, Shedeur's been quietly doing the one thing NFL franchises beg for. Developing. Not just developing behind the scenes. Developing under pressure. Taking real snaps. Making real reads against NFL defenses. Absorbing lessons that only come when you're standing in a collapsing pocket with 280-pound linebackers bearing down on you. And that's the guy you're going to demote? Because the rich kid underperformed in a nationally televised college game, but still has a famous last name? Make sense. But here's what's really going on, and it's uglier than fans want to admit. The Browns are chasing control. See, Shedeur isn't just a quarterback. He's a brand. He's media savvy. He's smart. He's independent. And oh yeah, his dad is literally Coach Prime. That means he doesn't need the league's validation to feel like a star. And for a lot of NFL execs, that's terrifying. Because they can't mold Shedeur. They can't break him down and rebuild him in their image. He walks into every room knowing exactly who he is. And that confidence can be threatening in a league that's used to rookies falling in line and speaking in cliches. So when someone like Arch comes along, clean-cut polished, with a legacy that demands reverence, they salivate because they think they can shape him. They think he's more manageable. He's safer. Familiar. He fits the mold. Even if that mold hasn't done a damn thing to prove he's ready to lead an NFL team. And that's the difference right there. This isn't a football decision. It's a branding decision. It's optics over output, marketability over merit. And it's a slippery slope that could take Cleveland from finally finding their guy to starting over for the 43rd time. Now, if you're Shedeur Sanders right now, you're sitting in that locker room reading these headlines, and you've got to be thinking, what more do I have to do? Because you've done everything right. You kept your head down. You worked. You let your game speak. You didn't demand to start. You earned respect in a league that gives it sparingly. And still, your job is being dangled in front of cameras like a pawn in some ridiculous Manning-themed chess game. And I'll tell you what's going to happen if the Browns pull the trigger on this. Shedeur leaves. And someone, maybe the Falcons, maybe the Patriots, maybe even Sean Payton out in Denver, picks him up, hands him the reins, and says, go, be you. And you know what he's going to do? Cook Because Shedeur doesn't need a perfect situation to succeed. He just needs a team that believes in his actual ability, not the one living in fantasy football land chasing last names and high school highlight tapes. Meanwhile, back in Cleveland, Arch is struggling under the weight of expectations he never asked for, throwing into double coverage because the franchise moved on from a real QB for the idea of one. And the fans? They'll be in full revolt. Again, it's a cycle. We've seen it. We know how it ends. The Browns aren't just flirting with disaster. They're trying to date it long term. So here's the question Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry need to ask themselves before they make this move. Do you want a quarterback who looks the part or one who plays the part? Because Shedeur Sanders may not be perfect. He may not be conventional. He may not fit your sanitized, sponsor-proof vision of what a franchise QB looks like. But he's real. He's battle-tested. He's ready. And if you let him walk for someone who's still figuring out how to read a zone blitz, you're not just making a mistake. You're becoming a cautionary tale. So sound off in the comments. What would you do? Is Arch worth the risk? Or are the Browns about to fumble the best thing they've had under center in years? Smash that subscribe button for more unfiltered football chaos. And stay locked in, because in Cleveland, quarterback dreams don't just die. They get sacrificed. Shedeur Sanders is on the sideline, watching his name float through headlines like a man accused of stealing first string without permission. The same guy who's been the most composed person in the building since the moment he arrived. The same guy who earned his way to the league, took every unfair hit, every media swipe, every draft snub, and still showed up like a professional from day one. Now he's the expendable one? Come on, let's be real. This whole Arch over Shedeur debate isn't about talent. It's about control, about comfort, about a franchise that still doesn't know how to handle confident leadership when it doesn't come in a package they're used to. Because Shedeur Sanders, he doesn't wait for permission to be a star. He doesn't lower his head. He doesn't shrink himself for the sake of optics. He walks into the room, and he is the moment, and that makes people in power nervous. Because you can't develop someone like that in the way they want. You can't put him in a box. You can't run the usual rookie obedience camp and expect him to play along. He's not here to play the NFL's outdated QB narrative. He's here to rewrite it. And look, we could talk numbers. We could break down passer ratings, completion percentages, pocket presence, and all the football IQ metrics the league loves to throw around when it's convenient. But you already know, if this were based on film alone, Shedeur's name wouldn't even be in the same sentence as the word practice squad. His poise, his reads, his timing, they're advanced, especially for a rookie with half the resources and twice the scrutiny of most of his peers. But that's not what this is about anymore. This is about perception. And right now, the Browns front office is choosing illusion over reality. They're watching a college game, seeing a man on the field, and getting drunk on nostalgia. Peyton, Eli, the Super Bowls, the commercials, the legacy. They're watching Arch like he's a bloodline investment, a ticket to respectability, as if just having a Manning in the building might finally cast out whatever quarterback demons still haunt Cleveland like ghosts at a cursed stadium. But here's what they're forgetting. Legacy doesn't win you games. Performance does. And Arch, he hasn't shown he's ready to perform on this level. Is he talented? Sure. Is he marketable? Obviously. But is he better right now than Shedeur Sanders? Absolutely not. In fact, if we're being brutally honest, Arch might not even be ready to start at Texas, let alone take the reins in Cleveland. And that's not an attack. It's just the reality of being young, raw, and under constant pressure from a name you didn't ask to inherit. And trust me, if the Browns actually move Shedeur down the depth chart in anticipation of an Arch Manning draft pick, they are not just replacing a quarterback. They are setting fire to their credibility. Let's walk through it. Let's imagine that scenario. Arch Manning gets drafted. Top 10 pick. Flashbulbs. Press conferences. Peyton shows up with a supportive tweet. Eli grins awkwardly from the front row. Brown's Twitter is 50-50 split between we got a Manning and what did we just do? And Shedeur? Gone. Or worse, buried on the practice squad. Wasted. Forgotten. Until a real team picks him up. A team that knows how to spot leadership when it's staring them in the face. Fast forward one season. Arch struggles. Because of course he does. He's a rookie thrown into a toxic quarterback environment where half the team was built for Shedeur's playstyle, and the fans have PTSD from the last 20 years. Meanwhile, Shedeur is out here slinging dimes in Atlanta or New Orleans, making defenses look silly while the Browns are cycling through backup plans like it's a clearance racket target. The headlines write themselves. Browns let another star walk while chasing shadows. And guess what? That will happen, because Shedeur Sanders is not a maybe. He's a yes. A yes that the NFL is still afraid to say out loud. Why? Because he challenges the system. Because he represents a new kind of quarterback, one who comes with charisma, self-awareness, and unapologetic ambition. One who doesn't need the media to make him a star, because he already is one. And for a league that still treats swagger like a character concern, that's terrifying. But here's the kicker. Shedeur is still humble. He still shows up. He still works. He still respects the game. And yet, he gets labeled as distracting or too confident, while a kid who threw for 152 yards in a televised college game gets scouted like he's prime Andrew Luck. It's laughable. And if you're a Browns fan, you should be furious. Because the truth is, your team already has the guy who could build a culture, the guy who could turn Cleveland into more than just a cursed quarterback meme. But instead, ownership is off chasing a fairy tale with a last name. Again, it's history repeating itself in the most ridiculous way possible. Except this time, the stakes are even higher. Because losing Shedeur doesn't just mean you're down a quarterback. It means you've turned your back on proof. And for what? Potential? Let me say it louder. Potential is not performance. Potential gets coaches fired. Performance gets banners hung. So here's the final question Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry need to answer before this spirals any further. Are you trying to build a football team? Or are you building a legacy museum? Because Shedeur Sanders is not a placeholder. He's a franchise face. He's a long-term answer with the skill, the drive, and the story that matters. You don't bench that. You build around it. And if you don't, another team will. And when Shedeur's out there throwing touchdowns, leading playoff pushes, and giving press conferences that sound like TED Talks, you'll realize you had the guy, and you let him go. For a name. Shedeur Sanders versus Arch Manning. Two names. Two narratives. One absolutely unhinged situation. And if you thought it couldn't get messier, oh, buddy, buckle up. Because the Browns are dangerously close to making the most Cleveland Browns decision imaginable. Taking a promising young quarterback who actually wants to lead this team into the future and throwing him under the bus for a guy whose last name is doing more work than his stat sheet. Let's go ahead and call this what it really is. A quarterback soap opera. Only this time, the plot twist is an injury, or salary cap drama, or locker room beef. No, this time the twist is that ownership, specifically Jimmy Haslam, is reportedly so starstruck by Arch Manning's legacy that they're willing to flirt with the idea of sidelining Shedeur. Let's just take a minute and really sit with how insane that is. You've got a guy, Shedeur Sanders, who has been nothing short of composed and confident since he walked into the NFL. A guy who didn't just get drafted, he survived the draft, picked in the 5th round, when everyone with functioning eyeballs knew he had second-round talent at worst. Why'd he drop? Because he didn't fit the mold. Because he was too polished, too self-aware, too connected. Because his last name was Sanders, not Manning. Because he posted highlight reels and wore watches and refused to tone down his swagger just to make executives feel more comfortable. And now, even after proving that he can handle a pro system, lead a locker room, and, most importantly, not completely fall apart under NFL pressure, he's the one who's being eyed for demotion? You don't need football knowledge to see how backward that is. You just need common sense. And listen, this is no shade to Arch. He didn't ask for the hype machine to crank up before he even got his driver's license. It's not his fault the last name on the back of his jersey comes with expectations taller than AT&T Stadium. But you can't ignore the facts. Arch isn't tearing it up at Texas. He's not dominating defenses. He's not leading game-winning drives on national television and silencing doubters. He's just developing, slowly, quietly, like a normal college quarterback should. So why are we treating him like he's the second coming? Oh, right, the name. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? It's about image, optics, the allure of legacy. And for a franchise that has spent decades fumbling the quarterback position like a greased watermelon, there's something intoxicating about the idea of finally landing a Manning. But at what cost? Let's talk real consequences. Because this is a Madden franchise mode where you can swap quarterbacks like trading cards. These are real players, real careers, real locker room dynamics. And if the Browns really bench or demote Shedeur Sanders for a college prospect who hasn't thrown a single NFL pass, they're sending a message, not just to Shedeur, but to every single player in that locker room. The message? Merit doesn't matter. Politics do. You think players don't notice that kind of thing? You think the wide receivers, the linemen, the secondary, guys who grind for every snap, aren't watching how this unfolds? Because they are. And if they see the franchise reward hype over hard work, that locker room's chemistry, gone. And the fan base? Oh, don't even get me started on the fan base. Cleveland fans have put up with everything, from the jersey with 30 names on the back to the Johnny Manziel circus to the Deshaun Watson drama. They've been faithful, patient, and, against all odds, hopeful. And now, just when it seemed like there was a real, grounded quarterback with star potential on the roster, ownership is out here playing fantasy football with future draft picks? That's not just risky. That's reckless. Shedeur has become something rare in Cleveland, a beacon of actual, grounded optimism. He brings energy, but not drama. Confidence, but not entitlement. He speaks like a leader, walks like a starter, and competes like he has something to prove, even though he really shouldn't have it anymore. And you're thinking about replacing that for a prospect who, again, hasn't proven himself against NFL caliber talent? You have to ask, is this even about football anymore? Or is this just about headlines? Because let's not forget, this Arch Manning buzz didn't start because of some leaked scouting report or a film breakdown that showed he was secretly the next Mahomes. It started because Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry were spotted at a college game. That's it. That's the whole spark. They went to a game, saw the most famous name in football take the field, and the speculation began. And here we are. A rumor has turned into a viral narrative. But let's ask the most important question of all. What happens if the Browns actually do this? What if they really roll the dice, push Shedeur out of the picture, draft Arch, and build the entire franchise identity around a name instead of skill set? Let's say Arch comes in and he's not ready. Let's say the pressure eats him alive. Let's say the expectations crush his confidence. Let's say he gets compared to Peyton and Eli in every single post-game show and can't live up to the hype because how could anyone? Then what? Now you've burned the bridge with Shedeur. You've killed the trust in your locker room. You've alienated a fan base that was finally starting to believe again. And you're right back where you started. Lost at quarterback, wondering how you managed to fumble the bag again. It's the definition of self-sabotage. And you can already see the future, can't you? Shedeur in a different uniform, flashing that calm, focused stare as he throws a 40-yard bomb down the sideline. ESPN cut to commercial with the lower third that reads, Sanders shines in second year after Browns let him walk. It's the kind of headline that makes general managers squirm in their seats. And Jimmy Haslam? He'll be left watching another quarterback develop into greatness somewhere else while Cleveland becomes the punchline. Again, so here's the deal. You want to draft Arch Manning? Fine, but don't pretend it's based on performance. Don't insult the intelligence of your fans. Don't gaslight the locker room. And absolutely do not do it at the expense of a guy who's already showing he can be the guy. Shedeur Sanders doesn't need the NFL to validate him. But the NFL desperately needs to stop pushing away talent just because it doesn't fit into a neatly packaged PR box. This isn't just about quarterbacks. It's about vision, about values, about whether teams are finally ready to move past the outdated, polished, press-trained image of what a leader should look like. Because if they are, Shedeur is already there. And if they're not, Well, the Browns better get comfortable watching him lead someone else's franchise to the playoffs. Because that's exactly where this is headed if they make the wrong call. If this is how the Browns treat quarterbacks, if this is how they treat potential that's already producing, not just potential that's projected, then what message are they sending to every future draft pick, free agent, or undrafted player with a chip on their shoulder? Simple. Don't be too confident. Don't be too popular. Don't be too ready. Because the minute you show you've got a plan, a voice, and a brand, they'll start shopping for someone quieter, someone safer, someone who won't disrupt the illusion of control. And that's exactly why this whole arch over Shedeur conversation feels so dangerous. It's not just a personnel decision. It's a philosophy. Do you want the guy who grinds in silence and speaks only when spoken to? Or do you want the guy who walks in and owns the moment? Not because he's cocky, but because he knows he can back it up? The Browns say they want a leader. They say they want toughness. They say they want someone who can carry the franchise on his shoulders. Well, newsflash, they got that guy. He's already in the building, already watching film, already winning respect from teammates who know authenticity when they see it. And if they can't recognize that, if they can't look past the glitz and get real about who's actually ready to run the offense, then they deserve the fallout that's coming. Because when Shedeur Sanders becomes a quarterback who got away, and let's be clear, that's exactly what will happen, you won't just lose games. You'll lose the locker room, the fan base, the soul of what this team could have been. Because greatness doesn't always come in familiar packaging. Sometimes it comes in the form of a kid who dared to be himself, fully, publicly, unapologetically, and still showed up ready to win. So, Browns, you've got a decision to make. Stick with the guy who's already putting the work, earning respect, and giving you a shot at building something real. Or chase another name, another illusion, another legacy. But just know, if you bench Shedeur for a dream that hasn't even declared for the draft yet, it won't just be a bad look. It'll be a franchise-defining mistake, one you will see again on highlight reels from another city with Shedeur under center, staring down the field, proving you should have believed. And by then, it'll be too late.